Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing the 1990 horror, comedy horror, Troll 2, as directed by Claudio Fragasso. Fragasso? Anyway, now, to start, to say once again that this bears no relation to the children's animated movie series Trolls, which is a completely different thing altogether. However, I would say that this time around, there may not actually be that much distinction. The film also has absolutely nothing at all to do with the original 1986 movie, Troll. Not at all, in the slightest. Troll 2 was actually going to be another film entitled Goblins, which are indeed the creatures featured in this film. There is not one mention of a troll anywhere in the whole film. Bewildering, I know. And as such, was never actually planned to be a sequel to Troll at all. They have no canon with each other, no continuity, no returning cast. Or characters, for that matter of fact. However, it does have a similar low-budget fantasy style, coupled with a kind of ecologically friendly plot, if you like. I had watched the first Troll movie some months back now, and I did say back then I would get around to reviewing Troll 2 at some point. As my channel's progressed, I have now got a tendency to do like a series collectively. And so this one, and I think Gremlins, yeah, they remain the odd ones out. But given what I'd heard about this film, however, in that it's pretty much tagged as being one of the worst movies ever made, and I believe has garnered quite a cult following as a result, and given the way that I felt after watching Troll, I wasn't ready to kind of jump at the chance to watch this one, if you know what I mean. It almost felt like I had to kind of pluck up the courage to simply put the Blu-ray into the machine, never mind switch the thing on to actually watch this movie. But, as I said in my review for Troll, I had actually seen a glimpse of Troll 2 when I was very much younger. And what I did see did give me the heebie-jeebies. It gave me a few nightmares for a while, I will be honest. But that isn't why I was apprehensive to watch it again. I have seen far, far worse since then. But don't judge me, too much on that, Scott. I was only probably around about Oliver's age, so say 7 or 8 when that took place. Let's just say the film was indeed the one that I remembered it, but perhaps not quite as I remembered it to be. So, the movie features the Waits family, who are tired of city life. They have now arranged for a swap for about a month with a family in the country, in a small town that can't be found on any map, known as Nilbog. The family are keen to get back to basics, for the most part, believing that they are about to go back into the Stone Age, if by going what they say, if you have any doubts, but kind of having the enthusiasm of visiting Disneyland at the same time. Very strange. The family's young boy, Joshua, as played by Michael Stevenson, is visited by his deceased granddad, Grandpa Seth, as played by Robert Ormsd, who issues a warning about creatures known as goblins. Yes, goblins, not trolls. Apparently, goblins want to turn us into their favourite food, some kind of vegetable-based green slop. How do they do this, you ask? Well, by feeding us food laced with a lethal cocktail of vegetable extracts. Anywho, when they get to Nilbog, things just don't seem quite right, and soon they discover the town hides a terrifying secret. Nilbog is troll spelled backwards. No, Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards. So ultimately, I'll lay my cards on the table and say that apart from the film being very poor in a number of respects, it wasn't all that bad. And I did find myself actually enjoying it a lot more than I did Troll. I mean, you are pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel here, but for what it is, it's much more coherent than Troll. And for the most part, easier to follow. The main plot is fairly straightforward. The trolls want to eat us. Easy stuff. But then the film does kind of try and introduce other concepts such as ghosts, magic, sacred rocks, chants. It's quite the mixed bag, which overcomplicates it really, in a way more than was needed. The film looks and feels aesthetically cheap, and from the very first introductory scene, when we get our first glimpse of the goblins, fear is going to be the last thing on your mind. They are just so, well, let me think, laughable. I mean, is the only way I can say it. I think they were actually done for very little or even no money at all from what I've read. And unfortunately, although the designer has obviously tried, it just hasn't worked. And what we have ended up with is rubber head coverings, really, that kind of fail on many occasions to actually cover up the person underneath. For a small child, like I was back in the day, they are quite creepy looking, but nothing more. The acting, that's on par with the special effects. It is so cookie cut from the majority of the cast, and everybody really seems to just be reading off cue cards. There may actually be a reason for this digging into some of the background of the movie, in that the cast and the crew didn't speak the same language, and as such, there were translation issues with the script, which did mean that the dialogue suffered drastically. And apparently, don't hold me to this, but the director didn't want anybody to actually change the dialogue to make it more natural. It is, I mean, what an absolute shame, to be quite fair. So what we ended up with is a real kind of mismatch of words and phrases that wouldn't be used in the situations they're actually being used in. It kind of makes things feel quite awkward at times. One character, let me get this right, Credence Lenore Gielgud, as played by Deborah Reed, who is some kind of goblin witch. We never really do find out exactly what she is in this respect. Plays that character so over the top, it is somewhat distracting. Playing very much to the camera in each scene, like it was a panto. I almost did actually shout out at one point, "They're over there!" And, oh yes, they did. And silly sausages. But I must say, for as absolutely absurd as this character is in this movie, Reed is pretty much the only actor to actually act. She looks like she puts her all into the role. And as corny as it is the standout performance of the movie. She's the only one to really give it some oomph. Apparently, the filmmakers stated in their defense of this movie that it was supposed to be a comedy. Well, after watching it, I can honestly say that it tried to be many things. A horror, a fantasy, but a comedy? No, that was hard to see. If it was, I didn't get it. The film took itself very seriously, all told, which kind of just added to the inadvertent cheesy feel of the film. There's a moment that Joshua's granddad stops time. He does it only once, mind you, for a brief moment, so that Joshua can stop his family from eating the food left by the goblins. And bless them, as much as the actors actually tried to stay still, they really didn't. And talking about the food, it looks like it's infested with mold. But that doesn't stop everybody from drooling over it and wolfing it down. There was a special Halloween edition of ketchup that Heinz brought out a few years ago in the UK. I don't know if they did that in the rest of the world, but at Halloween they made it green. Yeah, and I am sorry. It just looked disgusting. How anybody could have thought that food that food in that movie looked good is absolutely beyond me. It made me feel sick, kind of just looking at it. And to top it all off, it's mentioned that the trolls despise us humans, as we are meat-eating garbage bags, with the foul odour of decaying flesh, very nice, and confess to be vegetarians. Yet, albeit through the transformation into some kind of vegetable goo, this delete humans nonetheless. They may be vegetarians, but I would reckon even vegans would scoff at their behaviour. The whole thing can be a bit surreal at points, if you know what I haven't said is evidence enough. And no more so than the end, which got more confusing by the minute. The troll's power was diminished when the Waits started eating some magic burgers left to them by Grandpa Seth. Now, if all you had to do to defeat the goblins was eat a Mackie D's, then I'm on to a winner, absolutely. Sign me up, Nilbog. Now, I know that's not strictly how the film ends, and the way that the goblins are ultimately defeated, but I just wanted to kind of highlight just how strange this film actually gets. I mean, nothing is ever explained in this movie. Not the goblins themselves, not the reasons for the presence of the ghosts, what Credence's role is in all of this, what the magic's all about. It's all just something that we have to accept. Mostly just leaving you with a kind of a bewildered look on your face for most scenes, and leaves you literally asking, what? Watch out for a scene involving popcorn, and you'll know what I mean. Weird. Overall, it's a fun movie, perhaps just not in the way that the filmmakers intended. I don't think it deserves to be called the worst film ever made. It's certainly not too far away, admittedly, but I have seen a lot worse nowadays, to be quite fair. It's cheaply made, and visibly so, but this is, of course, adds to its charm as a cult movie. It ultimately tries to bring in too many themes, when perhaps it should have just concentrated on just one, the goblins, and I think at least then it might have been passable. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, more trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. But most of all, yes, we've loved having you. We would love to see you back again at SciFirst MovieTalk. And yes, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.